Hey guys, so here bringing you another video. Now welcome to something not different. We do quick gameplay thought, Riot please videos all the time. But this one, I have had a skim read through, looks absolutely wonderful. So if you guys don't know, which I'm going to be honest, I didn't really know, we have a brand new head. Let's just quickly skim through what is his title. He is the lead gameplay designer of League of Legends. He's been recently, I believe, promoted to the role. The guy that used to be on the role, I believe, has gone to the MMO team. It seems that a lot of the high-ups in Riot have just moved to the MMO team. Maybe it's, you know, it's the exciting thing. It's the new project, so that's probably why. But this is an article from Riot Axes, the new guy on the block, and he's kind of just putting his thought process out there of what he's looking to do in the short term of League of Legends and maybe a little bit more in the long term. Now, again, I don't think I've had the pleasure of meeting this guy yet. Obviously, from time to time, I do get invited to dev meetings. Hopefully, in the near future, I'll be invited to another one that he'll be part of, because it'll be interesting to hear his thoughts, because again, in the skim read that I've done, it seems that a lot of what I've kind of spoken about personally in the last year or so might be kind of being looked at a little bit here, which is very interesting. So that is good. It seems that he's new to the role and he wants to hit the ground running of going, right, this just feels unhealthy. Let's look to make it better, which is good. It's not like he's just taking the role up and gone, well, let's just continue with how it is. That's interesting. So anyway, so, hi folks, this is Riot Axes here to talk about some upcoming gameplay plans. Preseason 2022 is looking pretty stable, and with the year coming to an end, it's a good time to talk about a few things on our minds for the next year, which is, yeah, I agree, it's a good time to do it. The only thing I will say is some of the changes that they're talking about here do sound quite big, and I don't know why they just didn't do it in pre-season, because when these changes that they're looking to do in 12.1, the first patch of Season 12 or Season 2022, it's brand new ranked season, so a lot of changes are going to happen the beginning of ranked season, when normally you'd want to put them in pre-season for people to get used to them, but also pro play, you know. I have also seen some pros on Twitter be a little bit vocal going, these are big changes that we have to get used to, and you're going to be doing it on the patch that we're starting pro play? It's a bit weird, so I actually do agree with that. They should have done these in pre-season. But anyway, so short-term plans. Most of preseason 2022 seems to have landed well, with the Chemtech Drake in good shape and objective bounties looking solid after some adjustments. Again, I'm still not a big fan of objective bounties. I feel they are rewarding the team that should be losing anyway a little bit too much. And again, Chemtech Dragon, I've learned to accept that one. The other one I absolutely detest, like most people in League. But then it goes, however, we're still actively monitoring the Chemtech Drake's terrain and Dragon Soul. So based on our observations, we're shipping a small change in patch 12.1, adding some Scryer Bloom plants in locations that should improve the defending team's experience in their own jungle. So those are the plants that give vision. So probably they'll be giving those like towards your own base, and then you can like proc them to look out towards the camouflaged zones. It's a really unhealthy mechanic. Like, I still to this day don't know genuinely one person that likes Chemtech Dragon. Every single person hates it. It is gimmicky, it's unhealthy, it's not balanced, it's unfun. And if Riot, in my dev meetings with them, the two words that they love to use is exciting and fun, and Chemtech Dragon is not exciting and it's not fun. It's just horrible. So I do hope that that dragon will go away, but continuing on, we knew that Chemtech Drake would be spicy edition. It's not spicy, it's awful, and we'll continue to keep an eye on it. So at least they're looking at it, is what I'd say. A lot of the time when Riot implements something bad, they just don't talk about it. They just ignore everything. They kind of cover their ears and don't talk about it, and then the player base just has to get on with it. At least they're talking about it. That's what I respect so far about Riot Axes. He's actively saying, you know, we're looking at it. We know it's a bit so we're going to continue to monitor it. My hope is that they just remove it. It's a bad idea. You know, not every idea you do in life, in game design, whatever, not every idea is going to land. Not every idea is good. That's okay. That's life. Get rid of it. It's not worth it. You know, if you want to revisit it, take it away, try to bring it back in the next preseason, completely reimagined. One, don't give a champion's passive, Sion's passive, as a Dragon Soul. It's a better version of Sion passive. It takes that champion's identity away, and it's a gimmicky mechanic anyway. because you have to kill the team that's stronger than you twice to beat them. You know, yeah, they'll die eventually with the Scion Soul if you kill them, but, you know, that's double the amount of times you actually have to take somebody on if they're in active combat with you, and they're ahead of you because they have Dragon Soul. And then secondly, camouflage is a very unique mechanic that not people... I hate stealth in League, so obviously I do know I'm a bit biased in this. I don't find stealth a skillful mechanic, stealth or camo. But it is a unique mechanic for some specific champions. You're now giving that mechanic to all champions in certain areas, and they're very vital areas as well, obviously, where they're placed. To me, it's just too much. It's just so unhealthy. But hopefully they'll be looking at it, and hopefully they'll get rid of it. But anyway, next up is there are several other areas we'll be looking at too in 12.1. So again, this one I would say is a big one to why they didn't do in preseason, because this is going to fundamentally change the meta. So I've been mentioning this in videos, but in 12.1, the teleport summoner spell will change significantly. Before 14 minutes, the new teleport has a longer cooldown, I think it's by about 30 seconds, and can only target towers. That's it. Nothing. So that, you know, the word only, you cannot use it on Zac passive. So if you're a Zac jungle player and you're used to your top laner saving you a TP, that ain't happening anymore before 14 minutes. So don't flame your top laner for not teleporting on your passive. They can't anymore. So after 14 minutes, however, its cooldown is reduced, I think just back to what it used to be, and it then can target all the same objects as it has always. So it can do towers, it can do minions, it could do wards, it could do, you know, champions objects. So again, Zac passive, Jarvan flag, Thresh lantern, you can teleport on them now, but after 14 minutes you can still do that. So what they're saying is in Season 2021, Teleport had way too much early game influence on the outcomes of other lanes. Our goal is to limit that influence and eliminate some problematic edge cases while retaining its ability to stabilize losing lanes, allow mid to late game side laning, and create opportunities for flanks. So the reason why they're getting rid of this isn't really for top lane, by the way. It is partially. But if any of you have noticed the meta for the past year, it's mid and top laners taking TP and teleporting bot lane in the first 5 minutes of the match. That's very common. It's extremely common for some mid laners to do it. Katarina, Akali, they now take TP Ignite, and that's what they do. That's what Riot is wanting to get rid of. It's not healthy. I will say I am fine with this change. I do quite like teleport to a certain extent, but you know, with me playing a bit more support than I have in the last few years, I played more support last season, you know, than I ever have. Yeah, it was annoying to have the mid laner just TP to bot lane at 3 minutes into the game. You're like, really? You're here already? So I'm hoping that will probably cure that quite a lot. Obviously, it's a very forced way to do it. It's literally like, you cannot do it anymore. The end. I do think it is going to hurt some people. It is going to hurt top laners who aren't the strongest, you know, some of them, and some of them are reliant on that teleport early to have an okay lane phase. So it's not going to be all positives. And this, again, this is a big change to flip the whole meta of roaming a bit. This, to me, is really weird not to do in preseason. To do this at the start of a brand new ranked season is asking for it to be a fiesta. Because so many people need a couple weeks to adjust to the changes in the meta when it's something this big. And then suddenly, hey, the new rank season started. Hey, the teleport big changes happened. The meta is now going to shift completely. Go have fun in ranked. It's a bit like here, even in pro play, and I think that's what pro players have been saying. That's a big change for pro play as well. And again, you're going to be starting the new pro season with this change that they haven't had time to adjust to. So it's a little bit weird. I don't know when Riot Axes took the helm of the job. Maybe he took the job a bit too late to implement things in preseason that he wanted to do, and maybe he's now only having the power, I guess, to do it from season 12.1 onward, maybe. Again, that's the type of thing that's, right, you're in charge now, but you can't do anything until 12.1. Maybe. I don't know. Next up, we're also looking to change some fighter items. In particular, Steric's Gauge has become a universal purchase, washing out the differences between bruisers like Alawi or Darius, which, you know, or versus light fighters like Fiora or Relia. Yeah, so there's a big difference between these kind of like heavy bruisery champs. Darius, you know, has that big axe and rawr, versus Fiora that has a duelist, you know, weapon, very light on her feet. They both buy the same thing. It's a bit weird. So they are looking to change that a bit. So we're also working on other items, most likely Mortimer Mortius and Death Dance are going to be looked at, so that champions moving off Sterix, so they're fundamentally going to change Sterix, so it's not bought every game. Will have adequate alternatives. We don't have a ship date right now, but it will definitely be in the first half of 2022. So again, what does short-term plan mean? Well, roughly 6 months. Up to 6 months. And then finally, and I'll say, I'm fine with that fighter change, by the way. That's completely fine. It is a bit weird that, yeah, like they say, a light fighter like Fiora is buying the same item as a Darius. Yeah, I get that. So they should have their separate paths, if that makes sense. Finally, sorry. And then we're also working on some mid-scope champion adjustments. Our next 2 projects are Janna and Ahri early in the year. 2 previously popular champions who have fallen out of favour lately. These will be in smaller scope than the Tam rework, but still substantial. So think of the rework one for Lucian, his recent update. This sort of work has gone really well so far, so we're building upon a process for it in the upcoming year, better defining our goals and how we'll pick the targets. We'll talk about this more in detail. So I don't have them on my hand right now, but of me recording this, we do have both, you know, what they're doing for both champions. If you want to look that up, I'm sure you could find it fairly easily. Because, yeah, I think Janna's fallen out of favour because Lulu is just such a stronger alternative as a shield champion, because Lulu gives so much more in the current meta. She gives more survival, she gives more damage, she gives pretty much more anything that Janna does. Maybe apart from healing, because Lulu doesn't have a direct heal, where Janna ult does technically heal. And then also for Ahri, again, Ahri is supposedly a mage assassin. She's a hybrid between the two. And she's not good enough really to be a mage. She doesn't do enough damage. And she also doesn't have one-shot potential anymore. If you want a mage assassin, everything about it, LeBlanc is just better. Like, that is just straightforward the answer. If you want a mage assassin, you play LeBlanc. So I do think a nice change to Ahri would be good. I don't know what route they're going to go. Are they going to continue her being a mage assassin, or are they going to make her more of a mage? Are they going to make her more of an assassin? I don't know. Again, the changes are out there. Yeah, we'll see what they are. And then finally, the areas that I'm personally more interested in, and this is where the areas that I've been talking about a little bit more myself, this is long-term investigations. So if you've been watching my content for the last year, I've probably been a bit annoying talking about how much damage is in the game and how reliable one-shots are. It is something that I've brought up with Riot as well in dev meetings directly. And they have admitted the damage is high. They have. So we'll see what this is. So in the longer term, we're investigating a couple of larger spaces. To caveat, we're thinking about these spaces very broadly and do not have any specific directions for them yet. Or not any, but a specific direction for that. We're just sharing so you have an idea what we're thinking about. We are not promising any particular outcome. So they're making that very clear. This is the early stages. We just want to see what it comes to. And if it comes to something, we may make a change. If it comes to nothing, we won't. The first one is burst damage. We're analysing how and when high burst of damage happens and examining their effects on gameplay. We want to keep the game exciting with high stakes decision making, but we also want to ensure that fights are reasonably understandable, and counterplay is possible, which in a lot of cases in League, I think many people would admit there isn't much counterplay to just getting one shot all the time. One shots are too reliable. There are classes of champions that are not one-shot champions that are doing one-shotting. A great example, I would say, is I love the champion, but Anivia. She's a sleeper champion right now, by the way, but you can build the standard build on Anivia. You're not even going Ludens, you're going Leandries, so a more tick-based damage build. You can still very, very often land one-shots. It's reliable. That's weird. She's not a burst mage. It's too reliable. I'm even seeing AD carries one-shotting people, and, my definition, by the way, of one-shotting, or is, maybe I should use the word burst damage, is a one-shot to me is, do you do one rotation of spells and the enemy team can't really react, and they're dead. That to me is my definition. So 2 or 3 auto attacks very quickly from an AD carry killing somebody, in my mind, that's basically a one-shot. You can't react to 2 or 3 auto attacks, boom, you're dead. Oh god, I'm dead. It's crazy how reliable one-shots have become. And that's my complaint. I don't mind one-shots if you're playing a burst mage and you land every single ability on a squishy target in late game. They should die. It's their mistake. They're out of position or whatever. You caught them out really well. Well done. Or you're playing a glass cannon assassin and you go and you find that AD carry in the backline and you get your full combo on them. They should die. The problem is it's too reliable without even a lot of the time people building full glass cannon. We've all seen Talon jungles building basically bruiser but still one-shotting you. That's quite common. So that's my area, I would say. Anyway, where were we? So we're still very early in this investigation, but our current belief is that burst kills happen too quickly and too often. So that is it, right there. Their current belief is that burst kills happen too quickly and too often. And like that one little sentence, for me, is everything. Because that is what I've been saying for this whole season. And it's been a frustrating season for me. I accepted the damage more later in the year, because I had that dev meeting with Riot, and if I'm completely honest, it kind of made me realise I didn't think they were ever going to make a change. I thought they didn't seem the most receptive to lessening the damage, is what I would say. But I also believe Riot Axes wasn't in charge then. So, I don't know. I don't know if this guy has come into the role and he's like, I think the damage is too high, I'm going to lower it. I don't know. It could be as simple as that. You never know. It could be one person. Because what I would say, all power to the dev team, they have a hard job. I'm not saying I would want their job. I might. But it's a very hard job to do. And everybody's got their own opinion, but sometimes you can get in a bit of an echo chamber of, when your devs are your friends, you will kind of agree and everything just kind of goes swiftly. You don't want any arguments. It just happens. It becomes a bit of an echo chamber. And sometimes what it needs is a brand new person to shake things up from the outside. He comes in, goes, guys, the damage is insane. What are we doing? And they kind of go, oh, is it? It could be as simple as that. Someone new, fresh eyes, not in the echo chamber yet. And that could be the difference. I don't know. So one option we're considering is to reduce damage output under at least a few conditions, most likely in mid to late game against very low defense champions. That's not to say we're deleting assassins or anything. It's a touchy area, and that's why we're taking our time investigating the data. As a friendly reminder, we're not guaranteeing to ship anything in the space yet. Even if we do, the goal isn't to ensure you can never get one-shotted or force a tank meta or any hyperbolic ideas, which is fine. I've always said I think the league is its most skillful when it is tank meta, but tank meta when tanks aren't doing damage. Tanks shouldn't do damage, and arguably they still do too much damage. The reason why I think the meta is most skillful and league is most skillful when tank meta happens is because everything you do matters. Every single spell that you land, every bit of damage matters. Nowadays, you can miss half of your spells and you're still going to one-shot somebody. Like, that's the point. You don't need all your spells anymore. It's not that skillful. So I do hope that they do reduce the damage. After we get onto the next point, I will briefly touch upon something also that Riot Axes did say. I was going to make a separate video on it, but it's not worth doing a separate video on. Next up, though, is second, the next thing that they're investigating is we believe that systems like items and runes provide too much healing and sustain right now. We've done some work to address this over the course of 2021, but we're still meaningfully off from where we want to be. We haven't settled on the details yet, including whether changes systematic healing should go out as one large swing or through smaller changes spread over time. The answer partly depends on what we end up doing with burst damage, because the longer it takes to kill champions, the more powerful sustain gets, which is true. And that's it for now. So this to me is insanely positive. The two big areas that I've spoken about in League, a lot this season is the damage is too high and there's also too much healing. And I do, by the way, I'm not obviously a math person massively. I do like math, but to me, isn't it obvious if the healing is too high and, when sustain, I've never, by the way, minded healing from a Soraka or healing from a support or a Nami W, whatever. It's your own healing. It's auto-attack healing, Omnivamp. I think Omnivamp was probably a mistake. So maybe they should look to get rid of that. But just to make the point clear, when I say healing, it's not a Soraka pressing W or pressing R. That's never been a problem for me in the last year. It's a Draven, with maybe a bad example because he's really bad right now. It's an AD carry nearly being dead and they're auto-attacking 2 or 3 times and they're suddenly back to full health. And I think part and parcel because 1, the healing stats are high, but 2, because of how much damage is in the game, when healing is based on % of damage, surely that's why the healing is so high. So if you reduce the damage, you also in effect will reduce the healing of your own sustain, right? Like that's how my mind works. Like that's why it's so good. That's just me. And that is the future. So again, really good start for Riot Axes. Obviously, maybe a Draven player with 1, his icon, and 2, his name. And Draven is in a, well, for me at least, Draven's in a terrible place. I think I had about 3 Dravens in my games today. They all lost lane. Draven no longer wins lane. He loses lane to late game champions, and he doesn't scale. So it's a pretty bad thing for a Draven. But the next thing, I'm not going to bring it up, but I can just basically mention it very briefly, is Riot Axes, in kind of this announcement, he was basically doing mini Q&A in the announcement of this article, and someone asked the question and he actually answered it, and it was, have you guys just not done a test where you reduce the damage by %? 10% less damage, 20% less damage? And he answered that question and he said they actually recently have. And this to me is why I do think he must be very new to the job, and it must be him doing this, because we've never heard of that before. Like, they have actually reduced the damage by 20% in playtests, and it was 20% of damage and healing and shielding, I believe. It was 20% everything across the board. And he basically went through what was good and what was bad. And what he said was, the bad is tanks became really overpowered, and that's only because tanks do too much damage right now. If you actually lowered tanks' damage, like more than a 20, like tanks don't need to do damage. They're tanks. So they do need to work out getting rid of tank damage, but part and parcel is because the items are really strong. But forget that. The big thing he said was in mid to late game, team fights were way better. They are way more satisfying in terms of skill team fight. You're not just one-shotting, oh, someone got one shot there, someone's one-shot there. You actually had to play the game. You actually skillfully had to team fight. To me, that was huge. So there were positives and negatives of both sides. It wasn't all positive, but that's where this investigation is going to come in. Is, oh, they're doing these playtests and everybody can agree, dude, it's so much more fun, the team fights in late game, when not everybody's just getting one shot all over the place. You actually have to play skillfully. That's a huge advantage, a huge positive. Can they somehow do that by reducing the damage, but then by not making tanks OP or not having other negatives? That is what they're going to look to probably do. And I'd say this is a pretty big thing for me, because obviously I had that dev meeting with Riot, and Riot said they like the damage. A lot of the big regions that play the game, they like the big damage. But maybe it's time that the damage does come down. Now, what I would say is, if this short term, and they're saying short term is within the first half of 2022. Long term, I would believe this is going to be a season 12 or season 2022 investigation. I presume we're not going to see much difference in damage or healing or sustain massively until maybe next preseason, that they'll do a whole season looking into it as a long-term investigation, and then we'll probably at the end of season 12 get like a, hey, remember that investigation we was doing? Here's the results, and this is what we're going to do. Hey, the damage is too high, we're going to reduce it. And that will probably be next preseason. That's what I'm guessing. But to me, this is insanely positive. Like, incredibly happy about this. So again, I'm looking forward to eventually, hopefully meeting Riot Axes again. I might have met him before. I don't know. I'm not 100%. It's hard to remember who's in the dev meetings and stuff. But he seems like the guy that we need in charge of lead gameplay design at Riot. So I'm very happy. If you guys are happy, 1, throw a like on the video by showing that you're happy. And 2, comment down below what you think. I genuinely would love people to talk about this actively. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Are you worried? Do you love the damage right now? Are you going to dislike if the damage goes down? Are you like me that would like the damage to go down so the skill level can raise again? Let me know. I'd love massive conversations down below. But yeah, that's going to be it. If you guys did enjoy, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys next time. Goodbye.